They mocked her for being poor, but she left them broke in spirit. Maya Delacroix adjusted the frayed strap of her worn canvas backpack as she walked through the marble-columned entrance of Westbrook Preparatory Academy. At 17, she stood barely 5 feet 3 inches tall, her slight frame swimming in a second-hand uniform that had seen better days. The blazer's navy fabric had faded to an uneven grayish blue, and the white shirt beneath bore the telltale signs of countless washings, thin in places, yellowed at the collar. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, secured with a rubber band rather than the silk scrunchies her classmates favored. The scholarship letter crinkled in her pocket as she navigated the gleaming hallways lined with portraits of distinguished alumni. Westbrook Prep was a world away from her cramped apartment in the city's forgotten district, where sirens wailed through the night and broken streetlights cast uneven shadows. Here, crystal chandeliers illuminated lockers that cost more than her mother's monthly rent. "Just keep your head down," Maya reminded herself, clutching her battered textbooks closer to her chest. "You earned your place here. Focus on the grades, ignore everything else." But ignoring everything else proved impossible when Victoria Ashworth swept into the hallway like a hurricane in designer heels. The 18-year-old Queen Bee of Westbrook Prep commanded attention effortlessly. Her platinum blonde hair fell in perfect waves down her back. Her uniform was tailored to perfection, and diamonds glittered at her ears and throat. Behind her trailed her devoted followers: Madison Pierce, a redhead with calculating green eyes and a smile sharp as broken glass, and Chloe Winters, whose family's tech fortune had bought her way into the inner circle despite her obvious desperation to belong. Well, Victoria's voice dripped with false sweetness as she spotted Maya fumbling with the combination on her assigned locker. "If it isn't our little charity case." Maya's fingers trembled slightly as she turned the dial, but she kept her eyes fixed on the numbers. "Ignore them. They'll get bored and move on." "I heard the school's really scraping the bottom of the barrel for scholarship students these days," Madison chimed in, examining her perfectly manicured nails. "Though I suppose they need someone to clean the bathrooms." The snickers that followed felt like needles against Maya's skin. She finally got her locker open and began transferring her books, each movement deliberate and controlled despite the heat rising in her cheeks. "Oh my God, look at those books," Chloe gasped with theatrical horror. "Are those actual library books? With, like, other people's germy fingerprints all over them?" "Probably can't afford to buy her own," Victoria observed, circling Maya like a predator studying wounded prey. "Tell me, Maya, that is your name, right? How exactly does someone like you end up at a school like this? Did you win some sort of pity contest?" Maya's knuckles went white as she gripped her calculus textbook. The truth burned in her throat, that she'd scored in the 99th percentile on every standardized test, that she'd taught herself advanced mathematics using library computers, that she'd written scholarship essays that moved admissions officers to tears. But she'd learned long ago that defending herself only provided more ammunition for her tormentors. "Strong, silent type, I see," Victoria continued, her voice growing colder. "How quaint. Well, let me give you some free advice, since I'm sure you appreciate anything free. This isn't some public school where you can blend into the background. At Westbrook, we maintain certain standards you clearly don't understand." The warning bell chimed through the hallway, and Maya seized the opportunity to escape, shouldering her backpack and hurrying toward her first class. Behind her, she could hear Victoria's laughter, bright and musical and cruel. The torment followed a predictable pattern over the following weeks. In AP history, Victoria would make loud comments about people who probably never learned proper table manners whenever Maya answered a question correctly. In the cafeteria, Madison would accidentally bump into Maya's tray, sending her carefully portioned meal, often her only food of the day, crashing to the floor. During lunch periods, Chloe would point out Maya's threadbare sweater or scuffed shoes to anyone within earshot, her voice pitched just low enough to avoid teacher attention but loud enough to ensure maximum humiliation. Maya endured it all in silence, her jaw clenched tight as she cleaned up spilled food or picked her scattered papers off the floor. She had reasons for her restraint that went far beyond simple pacifism or fear. Reasons that would have shocked her tormentors into stunned silence had they known. Violence solves nothing, she reminded herself, echoing the words that had been drilled into her since childhood. A true warrior fights only when there is no other choice. What Victoria and her followers didn't know, what no one at Westbrook Prep knew, was that Maya Delacroix was the youngest person ever to earn a black belt from Master Chen's dojo in Chinatown. She'd been training since she was 6 years old, when her mother had scraped together enough money for lessons after Maya came home with her first black eye from neighborhood bullies. The elderly master had taken pity on the small, determined girl, and had trained her not just in Taekwondo, but in Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and elements of Krav Maga. More than that, Maya was the reigning state champion in her weight class, a fact carefully omitted from her Westbrook application to avoid drawing attention. Her small apartment was lined with trophies and medals, testament to years of discipline and dedication. She could have ended Victoria's reign of terror with a single well-placed strike. But Master Chen's teachings ran deeper than mere physical technique. Fighting is not about defeating others, he'd told her countless times, his weathered hands gentle as he corrected her stance. It is about conquering yourself. The greatest victory is the battle you never have to fight. So Maya suffered in silence, channeling her frustration into late-night training sessions at the community center, where she moved through her forms like a deadly dance, every technique precise and controlled. She told herself that her education was more important than her pride, that she could endure anything for the chance to build a better life. But Victoria Ashworth was about to test the limits of that resolve. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning in November, when autumn rain drummed against the tall windows of Westbrook Prep and cast everything in shades of gray. Maya had arrived early, as was her habit, using the quiet morning hours to study in the library before classes began. She'd been making real progress on her scholarship essay for college applications when Victoria's voice cut through the peaceful silence. "Oh, look what we have here," Victoria announced to her entourage as they swept into the library. "Our little mouse, scurrying around in the early morning hours. How industrious." Maya kept her eyes fixed on her notebook, where she'd been outlining her plans for studying mechanical engineering. The scholarship she was applying for could change everything. Full tuition, room and board, a chance to escape the cycle of poverty that had trapped her family for generations. "What are you working on so intently?" Madison asked, leaning over Maya's shoulder before she could close her notebook. "College applications? How adorable. I'm sure there are some lovely community colleges that would be thrilled to have you." "Actually," Chloe giggled, "I heard they have some great programs for people who want to learn trades. You know, practical things, like plumbing or... What do poor people do again?" Maya's pen stilled in her hand, but she remained silent. This was just another day, another test of her patience. She could endure this. But Victoria wasn't finished. She circled around the table, her heels clicking against the polished floor, until she was standing directly in front of Maya. "You know what I find fascinating about you, Maya? Your complete and utter inability to know your place." Maya's fingers tightened around her pen, but she kept her expression carefully neutral. "I mean, here you are, in our library, at our table, using resources that people like my family pay for, and you actually think you belong here." Victoria's voice dropped to a whisper, but her words cut like razors. "You think that little piece of paper, that scholarship, makes you equal to us, but you'll never be one of us. Never." She reached out and plucked Maya's notebook from the table, holding it just out of reach when Maya stood to retrieve it. "Let's see what our charity case is dreaming about, shall we?" "Please give that back," Maya said quietly, her first words of the confrontation. "Oh, she speaks. Victoria clapped her hands in mock delight. And with such lovely grammar, too. Your mother must be so proud, assuming she's not too busy working her 3 jobs to notice. The mention of her mother sent a spike of rage through Maya's chest, but she kept her voice level. Please, that's my scholarship application. Scholarship application, Victoria repeated, flipping through the pages with exaggerated interest. How quaint. Why I deserve this opportunity. Oh, this is rich. Coming from a background of economic hardship has taught me the value of perseverance and hard work. She looked up with cruel amusement. Economic hardship. Is that what we're calling poverty these days? Maya reached for the notebook, but Victoria pulled it away, tossing it to Madison, who caught it with practiced ease. The 3 girls began passing it between them like a game of keep away, reading passages aloud with increasingly theatrical disgust. I have learned to make the most of limited resources, Madison read in a mockingly earnest voice. My mother's sacrifices have inspired me to pursue excellence in everything I do. Oh, how touching. A real rags-to-riches story. Wait, Chloe squealed, grabbing the notebook. Listen to this. I believe that education is the key to breaking cycles of poverty and creating opportunities for future generations. Breaking cycles of poverty? Honey, some cycles can't be broken. Some people are just meant to stay where they belong. Maya's hands clenched into fists at her sides, but her voice remained steady. You've had your fun. Please give it back. Victoria snatched the notebook from Chloe and held it high above her head, well out of Maya's reach. You know what? I think this application needs some editing, some reality adjustments. Before Maya could react, Victoria had torn out the carefully written pages and scattered them across the floor. But she wasn't finished. As Maya dove to collect the scattered papers, her heart breaking at the sight of weeks of work destroyed, Victoria grabbed her backpack and dumped its contents across the library table. Maya's worn textbooks tumbled out, along with her calculator, a battered device held together with electrical tape, her pencil case made from a repurposed tin can, and her lunch. The meager meal consisted of a peanut butter sandwich wrapped in a napkin and an apple that had seen better days. Oh my God, Victoria gasped in theatrical horror. Is this what you call lunch? A sad little sandwich and a bruised apple? How depressing. She picked up the apple and examined it with disgust. This is actually pathetic, Maya. Even the homeless people downtown eat better than this. Maya scrambled to collect her scattered papers, her cheeks burning with humiliation as other early arriving students began to gather, drawn by the commotion. She could feel their stares, hear their whispered comments, and poorly concealed laughter. Please, she whispered, reaching for her apple. Just stop. But Victoria was far from finished. In a moment of casual cruelty that would haunt Maya's dreams, she casually tossed the apple toward the trash can. It missed, hitting the floor with a wet splat that seemed to echo through the suddenly silent library. Maya stared at the ruined fruit, her breakfast, and probably her only substantial food until dinner, and something inside her finally snapped. Not with rage, but with a cold, crystalline clarity that she recognized from the tournament ring, the moment when emotion fell away and instinct took over. She rose slowly to her feet, her movements fluid and controlled. The scattered papers could wait. The ruined application could be rewritten. But this mockery of her mother's sacrifices, this casual destruction of her dignity, this would end now. Victoria, Maya said quietly, her voice carrying a new quality that made several students step back instinctively. Victoria turned, expecting to see tears or broken spirit. Instead, she found herself looking into eyes that held the focused intensity of a predator. For the first time since the torment began, uncertainty flickered across her perfect features. I need you to listen very carefully, Maya continued, her voice never rising above a conversational tone. You're going to apologize for what you just did. You're going to help me clean up this mess, and then you're going to leave me alone. Victoria's uncertainty transformed into indignant rage. Excuse me? Are you actually trying to give me orders? I'm giving you a choice, Maya replied, her stance shifting almost imperceptibly into something more balanced, more ready. The easy way or the hard way? Laughter burst from Victoria's lips, high and sharp. The hard way? What are you going to do, hit me? You pathetic little... The insult died in Victoria's throat as Maya moved. It happened so fast that most of the watching students barely registered the motion. One moment Victoria was standing smugly triumphant. The next, she was pressed face first against the wall with her arm twisted behind her back in a joint lock that could snap bone with the slightest pressure. I said listen carefully, Maya whispered, her breath warm against Victoria's ear. I've been patient with you because I thought you might eventually grow up and develop some basic human decency. But patience has its limits. Victoria struggled against the hold, her face reddening with effort and embarrassment. The watching students had gone completely silent, phones appearing as word of the confrontation spread through social media. Let me go, Victoria gasped, her voice climbing toward hysteria. You can't, this is assault. I'll have you arrested. My father will... Your father will what? Maya asked mildly, applying just enough pressure to make Victoria wince. Sue me? For what damages? My family has nothing to take. Expel me? I've already been accepted to 3 different colleges. Have me arrested? For defending myself against bullying? The truth of Maya's words settled over Victoria like a cold shroud. For all her privilege and connections, she had no real power over someone who had nothing left to lose. You've spent months trying to make me feel small, Maya continued, her voice remaining conversationally pleasant even as she maintained the painful hold. Making me clean up messes you created, destroying my property, mocking my mother's sacrifices. Did you think there would never be consequences? Madison and Chloe stood frozen, their usual smugness replaced by genuine fear as they realized they were witnessing the complete reversal of their social order. The quiet scholarship girl they'd tormented was revealing herself to be something far more dangerous than they'd ever imagined. The thing is, Victoria, Maya said, adjusting her grip slightly, you've been playing a game where you thought you knew all the rules, but you never bothered to learn anything about your opponent. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. I am a 3-time state champion in mixed martial arts. I hold black belts in 2 different disciplines. I could break your arm without breaking a sweat. I could end your social media modeling career with a single well-placed strike. I could leave you in a hospital bed for months. Victoria's struggles ceased as the full implications sank in. Around them, the watching students pressed closer, their phones capturing every moment of the Golden Girls' downfall. But I won't, Maya continued, her voice taking on an almost gentle quality. Do you know why? Because that would make me exactly like you, someone who uses power to hurt people weaker than themselves. And I refuse to become what I despise. She released Victoria suddenly, stepping back as the blonde girl stumbled and nearly fell. Victoria spun around, her perfect hair disheveled, her cheeks flushed with humiliation and rage. You, Victoria started, raising her hand as if to strike. Maya caught her wrist effortlessly, her grip gentle but immovable. I wouldn't recommend that. Assault charges look terrible on college applications. For a long moment, they stared at each other, the former victim and her tormentor. Then Maya released Victoria's wrist and stepped back, her posture relaxed, but ready. Here's what's going to happen, Maya announced, her voice carrying clearly through the library. You're going to apologize. Not because I'm making you, but because it's the right thing to do. You're going to help me clean up this mess. And then you're going to leave me alone. Permanently. Victoria's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, her usual eloquence deserting her. The watching students waited in breathless anticipation, phones still recording, as the queen bee of Westbrook Prep faced a choice that would define her remaining time at the school. Victoria began, then stopped. Her eyes darted around the circle of watching faces, seeing her humiliation reflected in dozens of smartphone screens. This moment would be shared thousands of times before lunch, her perfect reputation crumbling with each view. "I'm sorry," she whispered finally, the words barely audible. "Louder," Maya said firmly, and sincerely. Victoria straightened slightly, some of her composure returning even as tears of frustration glittered in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Maya. I'm sorry for destroying your application and making fun of your lunch and everything else." Maya nodded once, then knelt to begin collecting her scattered papers. After a moment's hesitation, Victoria joined her, her designer blazer brushing against the library floor as she helped gather the torn pages of Maya's scholarship essay. Madison and Chloe remained frozen, unsure whether to help or flee. The decision was made for them when Maya looked up from the floor, her dark eyes meeting theirs with the same calm intensity she'd shown Victoria. "You can help or you can leave," Maya said simply. "But if you choose to leave, this is the last time you get to make that choice without consequences." Both girls dropped to their knees immediately, scrambling to collect papers and restore Maya's belongings to her backpack. The hierarchy that had ruled Westbrook Prep for years crumbled in the space of minutes, replaced by something far more fundamental: respect born of genuine strength rather than inherited privilege. When the last paper had been collected and Maya's belongings restored, she stood and shouldered her backpack. The watching students parted before her like water, their expressions ranging from awe to fear to grudging admiration. "Thank you," Maya said to Victoria, her voice holding no trace of mockery or triumph. "I hope you learned something from this." Victoria nodded mutely, her perfect composure finally cracking as tears began to slide down her cheeks. Not tears of pain, but of shame, the first genuine emotion she'd shown in months. Maya turned to address the watching crowd, her voice carrying easily through the silence. "I want to be very clear about something. I didn't do this for revenge. I didn't do this to become the new bully. I did this because sometimes the only way to stop a cycle of cruelty is to stand up and say, 'Enough.'" She paused, her gaze moving across the sea of faces. "Everyone here has a choice. You can be someone who stands by and watches while others are hurt, or you can be someone who speaks up. You can tear people down or build them up. The choice is always yours." With that, Maya walked calmly out of the library, leaving behind a profound silence broken only by the soft sound of Victoria's quiet sobs. The change at Westbrook Prep was immediate and dramatic. By lunch, the video of Maya's confrontation with Victoria had been viewed thousands of times. But rather than celebrating the popular girl's downfall, the reaction was more complex. Students who had been victims of Victoria's cruelty felt vindicated, while others who had enabled her behavior began to question their own actions. Victoria herself seemed to undergo a genuine transformation. The public humiliation had stripped away her artificial confidence, revealing someone younger and more vulnerable beneath. She began therapy sessions with the school counselor and gradually, tentatively, began reaching out to students she had previously tormented with sincere apologies. Maya, meanwhile, found herself in the strange position of being simultaneously feared and respected. Students who had ignored her before now went out of their way to be kind, though whether from genuine goodwill or simple self-preservation was sometimes unclear. "The thing is," Maya confided to her mother over dinner that night, "I don't want to be feared. I just wanted to be left alone to do my work." Her mother, Elena Delacroix, looked up from her own sparse meal with tired but proud eyes. "Mija, sometimes we don't get to choose how others see us. We can only choose how we respond to how they treat us. And you? You chose to respond with strength and dignity." Maya nodded, twirling her fork through the simple pasta that was their dinner. "Master Chen always said that the greatest victory is the battle you never have to fight. But sometimes you do have to fight, don't you?" "Sometimes," Elena agreed. "But you fought the right way. You protected yourself without becoming like them. That takes real strength." Over the following weeks, Maya rebuilt her scholarship application with help from several teachers who had witnessed her confrontation with Victoria. Her essay, rewritten from memory, was stronger than the original, more authentic, more powerful in its honesty about the realities of standing up for oneself. Victoria, meanwhile, struggled to rebuild her social standing. Some students continued to defer to her out of habit, but her inner circle had dissolved. Madison and Chloe, released from the toxic dynamic that had defined their friendship, began exploring their own interests and identities. Madison discovered a talent for debate club, while Chloe found genuine friends among the drama students. The most unexpected development came 3 weeks after the library incident, when Victoria approached Maya after advanced chemistry class. "Maya," she said quietly, her voice lacking its former imperious tone, Could I talk to you? Privately?" Maya studied her former tormentor's face, seeing genuine nervousness there rather than calculated manipulation. "Sure." They walked to an empty classroom, where Victoria stood awkwardly by the windows, her hands twisting the strap of her designer purse. "I wanted to thank you," Victoria said finally, the words coming out in a rush. Maya raised an eyebrow. "Thank me? For stopping me." Victoria's voice was barely above a whisper. "I was becoming someone horrible, and I didn't even realize it. I was so focused on maintaining my position, on being what everyone expected me to be, that I lost sight of basic human decency." She turned to face Maya directly, tears glittering in her eyes. "You could have seriously hurt me that day. Everyone would have understood why. But you didn't. You showed me mercy when I deserved none, and that taught me more about strength than anything else ever has." Maya felt something loosen in her chest, a tension she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. "We all make mistakes, Victoria. The important thing is learning from them." "I'm trying," Victoria said earnestly. "I really am. I've been working with Dr. Martinez, the school counselor, and I'm starting to understand how my privilege blinded me to other people's struggles, how cruel I was without even thinking about it." She paused, gathering courage for her next words. "I also wanted you to know that I've been talking to my father about the scholarship program, about how the school can do better to support students from different backgrounds." Maya's eyes widened in surprise. "Victoria, it's not enough," Victoria said quickly. "It doesn't make up for what I did to you. But maybe it can help other students who come after you, students who deserve better than what I gave you." For the first time since the confrontation, Maya smiled, not with triumph or satisfaction, but with genuine warmth. "That means a lot, Victoria." "Really?" Victoria nodded, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm trying to become someone better, someone worthy of the second chance you gave me." As Victoria left the classroom, Maya felt a profound sense of completion. This was what Master Chen had meant when he spoke of true victory. Not the physical defeat of an opponent, but the transformation of enemies into allies through strength tempered with compassion. The remainder of Maya's time at Westbrook Prep passed quietly. She focused on her studies, earned early admission to her top-choice engineering program with a full scholarship, and even began tutoring other struggling students in mathematics and science. Her reputation as someone not to be underestimated protected her from future bullying, but more importantly, her example inspired other victims to stand up for themselves. On graduation day, as Maya walked across the stage to receive her diploma, she caught sight of Victoria in the audience. The former Queen Bee was applauding enthusiastically, her face radiant with genuine pride and happiness. Next to her sat Madison and Chloe, both clapping with equal enthusiasm. Later at the reception, Victoria approached Maya one last time. "I have something for you," she said, holding out a small wrapped package. Maya opened it carefully, revealing a beautiful leather-bound journal. On the first page, Victoria had written, "For Maya Delacroix, who taught me that true strength comes not from tearing others down, but from lifting them up. Thank you for showing me a better way to be human." Maya looked up to find Victoria smiling through tears. "I hope you'll use it to write about your adventures in college. And maybe someday you'll remember that even people like me can change when someone shows us who we really could be." They embraced then, former enemies who had become something more complex and meaningful. Not quite friends, perhaps, but allies in the ongoing battle to make the world a kinder place. As Maya walked away from Westbrook Prep for the final time, her head held high and her future bright with possibility, she reflected on the lessons learned during her time there. She had entered as a victim, suffered as a target, and emerged as a leader, not through cruelty or dominance, but through the courage to stand up for herself while refusing to become what she despised.